A wiser feller than myself once said, sometimes you eat the turd sandwich, sometimes the turd sandwich, well, it eats you.
Now, rough transition to something at least I didn't have a great time with.
Oh, okay.
Transitioning to The Crow.
Okay, I see.
The Crow.
So you are a bit more negative on it.
Yes, I have points with it and stuff. There's some things I like.
Yeah.
There's a decent bit of negatives I have. Worst movie ever sort of thing? No. not by a mile. I've seen some garbage. This isn't worst movie ever. Of this year though, of the stuff I've seen, it's up there.
Yeah, for me, because I haven't seen very many movies, I will say technically this is probably on the lower end. My opinions are, I'm probably going to be a bit more neutral on it. Just to prime the listener, this isn't going to be like an overwhelmingly positive review, but at the same time, like I didn't come away feeling like I wasted 2 hours.
I'll first preface this. I think I told Teo this through Messenger. I went in there with a pencil or a pen and folded piece of paper. I had one of those small notebooks like detectives have, sort of thing, where they flip the page over.
Yeah.
I had one of those, but apparently the past month I must have thrown it away. I was going to take that in, so I just had to rip out a piece of notebook paper in my binder. I folded it into fours, and I walked in there like a madman. And watched the movie, and anytime I found something of note, I wrote it down, because the Madam Web thing before, and I'm not saying this is Madam Web, I'll get to that later, but the Madam Web thing before, when we had talked about that months ago, I had mentioned that it was just me and my brother, and so I had my phone out and I was just taking notes on my phone with Madam Web.
Yeah.
This though, there were actually a few people in my auditorium, so I didn't want to be rude.
Yeah.
So instead, I had a piece of paper folded on my knee, and I was writing. I look like a crazy person. And also, I can't entirely see what I'm writing. It's a dark theater. The only light I have is the screen, and it's a somewhat dark movie. So I'm just going off of muscle memory of like letters and words.
Yes. So
And
you get out of the theater, you read your notes, and you're like, what is Goobler Schmoobus?
When I got out of the theater, it almost looked like Arthur Fleck's journal. It's really bad.
It's Arthur Fleck's joke book.
Yeah. It's like just how awful the handwriting is, words and letters being everywhere. It looked like
all
that,
different
basically.
sizes and at different angles.
Exactly. Yeah. Because sometimes I'd lift my hand up and it's like, oh crap, where's the placement I was at? But I was able to make out my notes and put it into a Word document, so I guess that's a plus.
Yeah, you see, I've spent years, because there's something wrong with me. I know I say that a lot, but genuinely, I've spent years, even before I was like recording a podcast, basically developing a mental noting system so that I could find points of any given movie to attest to its quality or lack thereof to any person I would talk to.
Yeah. Well, my memory sucks balls, so I have to write like a crazy person.
Yeah, I don't always remember everything, but I usually remember the biggest thoughts that I have. Like, for example, is it okay if I give my first negative?
Yeah.
I think that opening scene could have done without the cringy edgelord narration.
Oh, I'm trying to remember the opening scene.
It's the bit from the trailer where he's like, when someone you love dies, you will get really, really mad. And you'll never forgive. and you'll never forget. And then the title starts, which I thought that title sequence was really interesting. But
I
but
personally
like
did not like the opening
the
credits.
like the
I'll get
bit
to
with.
that later.
Did you say you didn't?
For a reason. I think it's
Okay.
good, but I don't know if it fit the movies.
Okay.
I'll say.
For me, that bit with like him having the nightmare on the couch, and then like having the memory about trying to save the horse from the barbed wire,
Yeah,
could have been done silently, like wordlessly. We didn't
I'd
need
agree.
him
Yeah.
giving obvious trailer narration. That honestly, like in the trailer, you can hear they edit the line down a little bit. So I thought to myself, like, okay, they cobbled that together from multiple lines throughout the movie.
Right.
Apparently not. They just cut out
Yeah.
like one word in the trailer. But so like you watch the movie, you're like, oh, that's a tone setter.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't remember the narration. I remember that scene though, the
Yeah.
dream and him waking up. It's not amazing, but yeah, like if you just cut the narration out, which apparently it wasn't memorable enough for me, so that means
Yeah.
just cut it out if I don't remember it.
And then
And just have the scene. Yeah.
And then after the opening credits played, I said something to myself out loud in the theater. There were only like, including myself, about 15 people at my showing.
Mhm.
I said out loud to myself after the opening credits ended and it cut to Shelley sleeping on her couch. I said, "Does nobody sleep on beds?"
That's a good point. Yeah.
Because like everybody wakes up, like at that point in the movie, like everybody's
Yeah,
woken up from a couch. It's like, is everybody just sleep on the couch?
No, what we see later on is that beds are for couples. When they get
Oh,
together,
right, yes.
that's when they're in the bed.
Yeah, except a couch was also used for coupling at a point in the movie.
That is true. But we do see in Rich Friend's apartment, they use bed, so it's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So lonely loser like me, I deserve couch.
I sleep on the couch. I don't
sleep on
deserve
couch.
the bed. I haven't
Yeah.
earned the bed yet because I haven't found a partner who will tolerate me. Once when I find love, when I get my cute little mixed girlfriend like Eric does.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
regarding characters and stuff, I'm not saying she was amazing, but I guess that's an added positive because I said I had a couple positive. That's an added positive. I liked FKA Twigs in this.
Yeah.
Character wise, as well as like she's nice to look at.
Yeah. But yeah, she's also significantly more of a character in this movie than the dead girlfriend is in the 94 version.
Right. Yeah, like
to the point that once she dies, it actually feels like the movie shifts its focus. She feels like the protagonist of the film until the actual Crow stuff starts happening.
That's a good point. Yeah. It does focus a lot on her the first 40 minutes.
So yeah, I'll say like, and like that's not, to me that's not inherently a bad thing, but where that becomes something of a negative criticism is that she's so much the main character for those first 40 minutes it actually draws attention away from Eric.
Yeah,
and
to where
his vengeance narrative that we as the audience are supposed to be invested in.
Yeah, to where like and I'll get to this later, but I had mentioned to Teo that I watched this and then it'd been since high school since I watched the 1994 Crow movie. I watched that the next day. And the thing with that one is like Eric is like a character. You actually like feel for him and you're riding along with him, whereas this Eric in the 2024 one, because the first 40 minutes aren't really focused on him and stuff, it's just like once we get to the focus of him, it's like like you're a guy, like you're there, I guess.
Yeah.
I felt like I got more from the 94 Eric than this one. And this one and the 94 one didn't like do a lot of exposition in terms of dark and brooding sort of thing. Didn't do a lot of that, whereas this one I feel like did more, or at least I
Yeah.
remember it doing more. I don't know. I think it's one of those things where the 94 movie, and I'll get to that later. The 94 movie has some cheesy stuff to it, but it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
good movie. It's a good movie. And with that cheesy stuff, there's some cinematography experimentation and stuff that ultimately I'm okay with. Some of
Yeah.
it's cheesy, but ultimately I'm okay with it because in some of those instances it's less is more in terms
Yeah.
of saying stuff. Like no talking is happening. We're just seeing Eric just going through this. He's getting flashbacks, there's lights going on and stuff, and there's no narration. We're just seeing him go through it, and I like that a lot more than some of the it's not the best word for it, because I'm not saying this was entirely awful in this new movie, but the mopiness
Yeah.
in this new movie.
Yeah. It's the contrast between the two versions of Eric is very different, because Eric in the Brandon Lee version does feel significantly more active, which is weird because Eric in this one does a lot once he becomes the Crow, but at the same time, it feels less like he's made the decision for himself to do this. Everything about his motivation is there's a chance that I can bring her back, which I don't think was ever on the table in the 94 version.
No, yeah, the
Like
94 version,
his
it was
motivation in that one
simply
was 100% avenge her.
yeah, it was simply a year later his body / soul is brought back because, and it's mentioned in the opening narration of that movie, the little girl talking of, like, it's talking about a crow and how essentially like something so bad can happen that it needs to be set right, the soul cannot be at rest, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's the thing of that. It's just like, no, it's revenge. And it's also no one telling him like, okay, it's like what you said there. It's not like you can bring her back or she can go to heaven or anything like that. It's no one saying do this and this can happen. It's simply he was brought back, doesn't entirely know why he was brought back, but now that he's back, he's going after those guys, because
Yeah.
deep down that thirst for revenge, that thirst for justice is what brought him back. Something was not balanced, something was not right in the world. He's brought back.
Yeah. So with the with the new one, and I do think you're right about the new one being a little exposition heavy, especially since the villain is a lot more complicated in this one. Like he also has supernatural powers, so there has to be like lore that comes with that. So and I do like that it's relatively simple. He made a deal with the devil to stay immortal. That's it, right?
Yeah.
It's oh, by the way, listeners, full spoilers since both me and Brandon saw it. Sorry, it's a little late for that.
If someone
full
cares
spoilers
about
for both versions of The Crow.
oh gosh, I'm allergic to this movie. Sorry. If someone cares about spoilers for 2024 Crow, I'm sorry. Like I'm doing you a favor. It's not an awful movie. I'm not saying that, but it's like it's better stuff to do with your time if you listen to our spoilers.
As someone who loves The Crow, like the 1994 version of The Crow is one of my favorite movies. I have a crow tattooed on my arm, partially because of that, but also because I've been, like, just for the listener to get the context, I've been working on an idea for a comic book series for a very long time, inspired very heavily by The Crow, and I do wear my influences on my sleeve pretty significantly. Like I diverge a lot from it. Like I'm not just ripping off The Crow, I promise.
Yeah.
Please believe me. But yeah, just for listeners to know that like the Crow is an important story for me.
Yeah.
So like And even I'm saying, as someone with neutral opinions on this new version, wait for it to go to streaming. I don't recommend going to the theater for this. It's probably not worth the time or the money.
Yeah, no. The plus side is I had a bunch of reward stuff built up with AMC to where I got a $7 ticket basically, and even then it's not worth it.
Yeah.
The thing that was worth it is I do like, and again, I'm not trying to bash it too much. I do have some negative points I'll get to later, but when it comes to a movie like this, whether like reviews come out and stuff, and it either has bad reviews or it's like meh, like it has meh reviews or stuff like that. What gets me to enjoy those movies is for me to take notes in those. I know that sounds horrible. I don't recommend other people do it. It's just simply how I can enjoy a meh movie or a movie that gets bad reviews.
Yeah.
So in that context, money well spent, because I did have a good time like analyzing this. And it wasn't like Madam Web where it's so bad it's good. And I'm not saying all of Madam Web is that. I'm not saying it's a so bad it's good movie.
Just the train conductor scene.
Just 20 minutes of that movie are so bad it's good. But
seriously, I want to make a horror comedy where that's like a scene.
Yeah, the horror comedy will have that. We'll also have the villain disguised as the motor. We'll have of all that.
And very obviously disguised as the motor, but nobody notices.
So I've got. I'm trying to think if I want to do positives or negatives first. I think I'll do positives.
Dude, whatever comes to mind.
I think I'll do positives first, because by the end of my negatives, I think it'll lead into me kind of want to talk about the 94 movie.
Huh.
Positives with this movie. I'd mentioned one, FKA Twigs, I think does a good job. This isn't her fault. It's more just the story. It's the issue we had, or we mentioned, where it's such a focus on her, then it shifts to Eric, to where you don't entirely care as much for Eric as you would in the 94 movie.
Yeah. Honestly, the way the movie is structured, if you didn't know anything about the Crow going into this, you would other than like that it's a revenge story, you would almost expect her to become the Crow.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Like structurally speaking.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't put this in my notes. It wasn't a big positive, but it is something I thought about. They're not in it long, and it's not amazing, but I liked somewhat the dynamic of them in the mental facility, or not the rehab facility.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. It was kind of cute. Like it's nice. They're not in there long, but I say that's a positive of their interactions and their dynamic. And I also like the circle scene. Like that is very like cheesy, and it's like, okay, but I like that scene. It was nice. But that also led me to being like, well, now I just want to see these two have a movie of them in a rehab facility. I want to see an A24 movie of these two falling in love in a rehab facility now.
You know what? That'll be our first romance script. No, wait, our second one, because we said, all right, the hug tight heart.
Because that was the first thing that came to mind, and I didn't put it in my notes, but thinking about it now, when they broke out and stuff, and their dynamic and relationship afterwards wasn't as interesting to me anymore. I was like, dang, I just want to see an A24 movie of two people falling in love in rehab now.
And then getting out of the real world and realizing rehab was all they had in common, so things start to fall apart. That's an A24 movie right there. That sounds great. There we go. I'll pull up Celtics and start writing.
Another positive I have these are mostly scenes now, and they're small scenes. But another positive is the scene right after Eric and Shelley get killed.
Yeah.
When Eric is like swimming down to try to reach Shelley.
Yeah.
There's a scene where it's like a far away wide shot. Like Eric is in the distance and he's swimming down to reach Shelley, and we as the viewer, we're like 100 feet away, sort of thing, seeing him. That shot looked great.
Yeah.
It was only maybe like 20 seconds, but it looked great.
I have a quick opinion on that scene myself.
Okay.
So we see Shelley reaches a certain depth where she's very clearly too far away from Eric and he can't reach her.
Mm-hmm.
And he turns around and starts swimming back to the surface, which is something that a reasonable person would do if they, like, even if the person you love most in the world is falling into the darkness.
Yeah.
Like, eventually you're going to be like, I can't save them and myself. So, and you're going to give up. But Eric's not a reasonable person, and also this is a movie. I feel like it probably would have been a little more powerful if he had to be pulled by an outside force back to the surface rather than turning around like under his own power.
I'd agree. And you don't have to show it, but essentially it could just be the guy that was in the train conductor station or whatever. I agree. That would be better. Because throughout the beginning of this, throughout the movie, he's not the most rational person to where I could see him doing that, and it, like you said, better highlights his love or dedication to this person. I think that would be better. The biggest positive I have with this movie is the opera scene.
That seems fantastic.
The opera scene is pretty good. I'm not saying it's amazing, but it is good. Especially like, I'm not saying before this it is an awful movie, but it's. I'm not even saying it's slow. It just shifts essentially. It does a quick shift into the highest gear with the opera scene. It's great action.
In my opinion, it's one of the most, I think, interestingly choreographed action scenes that makes proper use of an undead protagonist. When your main guy is undead, there's a lot you can do with that in a fight scene that not a lot of movies make proper use of. But this one, I think, really went for went for it with the creativity in terms of the fact that Eric is already dead. He cannot die in this scene.
And some of the stuff that Teo's talking about, he gets like swords stabbed through him and stuff, and then he uses the sword that is stabbed within him to then hurt someone or kill someone.
Like there's a point where it's stabbed through the front of him, so the blade's sticking out of the back, and he's got a bad guy with a gun on the ground just laying down, so he just falls back.
It's great. And then the other part is like it gets stabbed through him, and there's a guy below him, and he's like, the guy realizes what Eric is doing, and the guy's trying to like push him up off of him, but Eric is like falling on him to like have the sword go into his eye. Very creative stuff.
It's great. Like there's so much you can do, because like a lot of people think that like, oh, you have an immortal hero in this scene, there's no tension because he can't die, which like you can have that feeling, sure, but at the same time, like he's fighting towards a specific goal. Like you always, when you have immortal characters, you got to give them a goal that can slip out of their grasp, right? So like he's kind of got that in this movie. So like the fight scene is just him killing a bunch of people who can't kill him, but it's still fun, and he's still working towards something. It's not tensionless, and it's not pointless.
That's true. Also,
like, come on, like people will sit down and watch 2 hours of John Wick shooting guys in the head. You think that guy's not immortal?
Oh yeah. 100%. Well, John Wick's the best of them. He's
Yeah.
the Baba Yaga.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So like at the same time, it's like, yeah, you have this whole world of assassins, and technically John Wick is a mortal man, but like if he's the best of them, like that,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't pose a threat. There's no tension there.
Well, they also play that pretty well in the John Wick movies. Of he is essentially the boogeyman, even in the assassin world. The assassins, all the other assassins, see him as like this legend, this fable sort of thing.
Yeah,
That's interesting how they play that.
yes, like there are things that can be done with immortal protagonists that are interesting. There's like,
Yeah.
like I said, give them a goal that can slip away.
Yeah. So what I will say with the opera house scene, though, I personally feel, unless people want to just watch all the Crow movies and see how they all stack up against each other or whatever it may be, I personally feel maybe even if this gets on streaming, to possibly just wait till the opera scene gets put on YouTube instead of watching the movie, just watching the opera scene.
Well, if it's on streaming, just turn the movie on and fast forward to the opera.
Yeah, just fast forward. Yeah, either one. Yeah. I those are all the positives I have. Do you have any more positives?
I don't know. I'm starting to think if I have to think this long for it, then maybe no. The bit where like his first night out seeking revenge, and he goes up to the driver who's smoking his Black and Mild or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, "I killed you," and Eric's just like, "Yeah, you did." And he gets in the back of the car.
Oh yeah.
Like that. I just thought that was a fun exchange.
Yeah, and this is like a very tiny thing, but I'm trying to stack on a couple more positives possibly. It was a very tiny thing. But when he either gets thrown out of the car or he gets thrown out of the car, then gets ran over or whatever.
Yeah, they managed to throw him out before he can do what he wants to do.
I do like how mangled his body looked. I know that sounds weird. I'm just saying it looked like very like, oh gosh. And he's like popping his leg back in and all that stuff. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting how anytime there was something sticking out that could obstruct his soft tissue from healing, he had to push it back in.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Like it wouldn't just like knit back in on its own like you see in a lot of superhero stuff. Like with Deadpool's stuff will just snap back into place and it'll heal right away. But like with the Crow, he has to physically push his organs or bones or whatever's sticking out back in.
Which this part I don't even think it's like a negative. I don't know if I'd say it's a positive either. It's just an interesting change because there are differences between this movie and the 1994 movie, but that's a difference from the 94 movie is the 94 movie, I'm pretty sure he can't feel pain, or he's so enraged and like kind of crazed that it just
doesn't register.
It doesn't register essentially. Whereas this one, he feels all the pain, but keeps going.
Yeah, he has to push through all of it to
yeah. So I'm not saying it's a positive over the 94 movie or anything like that. Just an interesting difference. I'll just say that
I think that notion, because like the idea that he's numb to the pain help is another thing that I think can take away some of the tension in a fight scene. So like for me, the fact that he does feel all of it, he feels every cut, every shot, every stab wound, he feels everything and still pushes through for that vengeance is another thing that like adds something to the character.
Yeah.
Which again, like you said, Brandon Lee's version's a little more of a character just by his force of personality. So for the new version, the Skarsgård version, it's really a collection of little details that stitch together something of a character in your mind. Unfortunately, most of it comes after his transformation.
Yeah, yeah.
So like you don't get, other than the fact that he is a very clearly damaged and mentally scarred drug-addled young man before
Yeah, yeah.
he becomes the Crow, you get very little about his personality.
Yeah, that's true.
Most of who Eric is for the first 40 minutes of the movie is presented to us through the context of his love for Shelley,
Yeah, yeah.
which again just puts more weight onto her as a character for the first half of that movie.
Yeah.
Which is probably just another huge reason why it feels like she's the main character for the first half.
Yeah, yeah. And this is ultimately like all of this is subjective, but this is a subjective thing that I just thought of the last act, like basically the opera house scene when he's when he gets out of the bathtub and is fixing to go to the opera, like the last 30-40 minutes of the movie is when he actually is Brandon Lee, the Crow, essentially, in terms of like abilities. Like he's now like immovable. It's like you said, like with the opera scene, he's getting shot and stuff, but he's still going. He's still moving. Whereas Brandon Lee, like the first 15 minutes, that's him. Like he is just this almost unstoppable force kind of thing.
Yeah, and like something that I noticed too is they kind of even have a version of the infamous scene where Brandon Lee died on set, where he gets just completely ventilated with bullet holes and like does a fake out death to lure the bad guys in. Which is in the original version, that's when like I think he's like standing on the table, right? And they light him up.
Yeah.
And then he falls back. In the movie, pretending to be dead. In reality, actually being dead, unfortunately. I know that wasn't intended as a joke. I know it sounded like kind of a morbid joke, but that is what happened. But yeah, in this version of the movie, in the 2024 version, he's walking up the stairs and he's got all these guys just lighting him up, and he's taking every hit and walking until he reaches a point where he drops to his knees and slumps over like he's just died on his knees. And then as soon as someone gets close, he rips into him.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, you're right. Like that, thinking back on that now, he is very much equivalent to Brandon Lee's version of the character in that opera house scene. Sorry.
Yeah. And like that comes about in like the last 30 minutes. Like once he gets out of the bathtub, like that's when it's
his resolve is solidified.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when he went into that bathtub, and the guy at the way station, train station, whatever you want to call it, tells him, "You failed. I'm leaving."
You had doubts and all that.
Yeah, you doubted her, so now your love isn't pure anymore. I thought to myself, like, because I knew that the movie had been going for a while. I knew it should have been close to its end, but at the same time, I thought to myself, like, this is a weird spot for like the second act low point. Like this
pretty
feels
far into the movie.
Well, it's far into the movie, but early in the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean.
Because again, like the movie feels like it completely becomes a different movie once Eric revives for the first time. Like it doesn't feel like it's a revenge narrative start to finish. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like a little too much work was put into the backstory and build up. And so that really leaves the second half of the movie to tell the entire story. But like that's a really, like, if you want this truly satisfying revenge story, like One of the things that I think makes this a somewhat dissatisfying revenge story is the fact that Eric doesn't even lay eyes on the guy responsible for not just his girlfriend's death, but his death until the end of the movie.
Yeah.
He gets into a room with the bad guy and asks, "Who are you?" That's the end of the movie, is not when your hero should be asking who the bad guy is.
Yeah, that's true.
Not if you want a properly satisfying revenge story. They should have been in the same room with each other at least once leading up to that moment.
Yeah.
So that's probably my biggest complaint for the movie. I don't know that I have anything like significant other than that. But yeah, like I feel like the end of the movie should not be when your hero and villain are first getting properly acquainted with each other.
Yeah.
When you think about it, like think about this, and this is completely insane to think about, but it just came to my mind. Frodo has a more prevalent relationship with Sauron than Eric had with the bad guy in this movie.
Yeah.
Because at least Frodo and Sauron saw each other once.
Yeah. It is true.
During one of the times when Frodo put the ring on, they looked at each other in the eyes. Well, in Sauron's case, but so just that by itself gives Frodo a stronger relationship with Sauron. A hero and villain who couldn't be further away from each other for their entire saga.
Oh yeah.
Part of.
Yeah, 100%.
Because like when you think about great villain hero relationships, you think of like Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, Harry Potter and Voldemort, like Batman and Joker. These are characters who see each other a lot.
Right.
So they have a lot of time to build up that animosity. And then you look at this version of The Crow, Eric and William Stryker from 2009's cinematic masterpiece Wolverine X-Men. We're doing it again. Whatever that was called, X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah, I feel bad for the guy. He's not a bad actor, but he plays the bad guy in a lot of like
comic book
movies.
Yeah, like he is a good actor. I can't remember his name, unfortunately, but yes, he's a good actor, and I'm always like, "Ooh, it's him!" whenever he's in a movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I noticed the thought popped into my head in the theater. Goodness, this guy only seems to play villains in comic book movies.
Yeah, true, because he played the main bad guy, the main vampire bad guy in 30 Days a Night.
And he was one of the German bad guys in Wonder Woman.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
The one that I believe she thought was Ares, but it turned out to be someone else.
I don't know if I entirely care enough to look now, but I want to see if anyone's asked him, like, hey, do you like comic books? Is that the reason you do so many of these? Like,
yeah, because the first movie I ever saw him in was X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah, same.
As the younger Stryker at the time.
Yeah.
And by the way, as fantastic as Brian Cox's performance as Stryker is, I don't know between him and this other guy whose name I can't remember who was the better Stryker. Like they both did a really good job.
Yeah. I think they both did good. Yeah.
So like that by itself should be a testament to the fact that it's really bad that I can't remember his name because he's a good actor and he deserves more than that.
Yeah, I can't remember. It's something Huston or Houston is his last name. I can't remember what his first name is.
We'll look it up before next time, listeners. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Unless we forget,
which will probably happen.
Yeah. No.
So I'll get into my negatives. This kind of is a mix. There's nitpicky stuff that was ultimately just kind of somewhat funny to think about, and then there are like bigger stuff, but they're all just mixed in between because there's madman writing. Yeah. So the first thing we had briefly talked about it a little bit ago. The opening credits intro to the movie felt like a TV show credits intro to me.
Yeah,
I thought it looks good. It looks good. Don't get me wrong. It looks good. I personally don't know if it fit for the movie though.
Yeah.
If there was a Crow TV series, use this intro. This is your Daredevil intro for your Daredevil show.
I think
That's how
there
it felt.
was a TV show based on the Crow for like
Yeah,
one
I think there
season.
was. If there was a modern day Crow TV show, use this intro.
Yeah.
Good intro. I just don't know if it works for this movie, in my opinion. That's a nitpicky thing.
Yeah. Because I liked it.
This,
I thought it was interesting. I think
Yeah.
more movies should have opening sequences like that. But we used to have opening sequences like that in every comic book movie. Spider-Man did it. X-Men did it.
Yeah.
I think the 2003 Hulk movie did it like that. Like a lot of movies used to have proper opening sequences like it was a theme song. And I think more movies should do that.
That's true. The only issue I had with it here is like how the movie opened and when the credits kicked in felt exactly how a TV show would do it. Where it's like,
because this movie definitely has like a cold open.
Yeah. It's a 3 to 5 minute cold open, and then I'm thinking of Walking Dead right now, but like it felt like that sort of thing. It's not bad. It is a great opening, but
I forgot The Walking Dead even had a theme song.
Yeah.
I watched that show.
That's the number one thing I remember about that show is the theme song. Great theme song. The show trailed off and started tanking as it went along, but yeah.
Yeah. I still want to read the comics though. I heard that.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'll get all the compendiums eventually.
I want to get the Invincible compendiums, but I gotta make space on my shelf by selling the smaller volumes of Invincible that I have.
Yeah, for me, space plays into a little bit. For me, it's more I have so much I have not read yet, so I just need to hold off.
Yeah, I know. Me and Clay were at the comic book shop last week, and I saw Little Monsters Volume 2 was on the shelf, and I was like, Little Monsters Volume 2! And I thought to myself, like, I have had Little Monsters Volume 1 on my shelf for months and haven't read it.
Yeah, that's the top 5 books I want to get next is Little Monsters Volume 1 and 2, because it's that matchup. It's Jeff Lemire, Dustin Nguyen. Like this is my thing. But yeah, it's just I gotta catch up on stuff. Tom King's Human Target, that's another one. That's been on my list for 2 years now. But I just haven't read like the stuff that's right next to me. Yeah. So it's like I guess I'll just hold off.
I got the first volume of the Death and Resurrection of Superman collection like 5 or 6 years ago. Maybe longer. I don't even remember how long ago it was. And that one volume has been sitting on my shelf for years, and I still need to get the rest of the volume. Mostly at this point, like, yes, I want to read it, but like I can subscribe to the DC app again and read it all the way through on there. I mostly want to get the rest of those volumes so that I can complete that Death of Superman S shield on my shelf with the binding. The same way, because I have the whole Nightfall saga on my shelf. I got all 3 of those bat symbols finished.
Yeah.
Because I got the 9-volume version of it because I think it looks better on a shelf than those giant 3-volume version.
Yeah.
And because like those 3 bat symbols next to each other, all like they look good. It looks good all sitting side by side. It clearly tells you which act of the story each one is kind of depicting, and also like the binding itself tells an interesting narrative that way, because you got the first one, which is Nightfall proper, which is this eclipsing of red and black over the traditional black and yellow Batman bat symbol, right?
Yeah.
And then for the Night Quest portion, it's Jean Paul's bat symbol. And then for the post Night Quest portion, it's Bruce's bat symbol breaking out back through Jean Paul's and like shattering it away. So it's like the binding itself tells a narrative. So like I like the way that looks on a shelf. I know I just kind of got into this weird tangent about the Anyway, I need more space on my shelf before I can get the really big Invincible volumes, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff on both of our lists, but yeah, it's space and I want to at least finish the Matrix Comics omnibus I have before I before I get anything else. I've had this thing for months. I've read a quarter of it. It's amazing. It's great. I just keep forgetting to go back to it.
I have the first 3 omnibus volumes of Hellboy on my shelf, and I haven't read the second or third ones. But at this point, it's been so long since I've read the first one, I'll need to read that one again before I can get into the other 2.
Yeah, that was my problem with Paper Girls. Was like I read volumes 1 through 5 of that, and then eventually got 6. And time passed, and then it was like a year and a half later. It's like, okay, I see this on my shelf. I think I want to read it. And I was like, I forgot almost everything from volumes 1 through 5. So
Yeah.
I wanna see the ending of Paper Girls, but I have to start from the beginning. So maybe one day I'll do that.
Ain't that always the way?
Yeah. So negatives. I'm seeing another negative with The Crow here.
Okay.
This first part, I think I disagree with myself because I wrote a lot of this the night after sort of thing. Eric and Shelley fell in love pretty quick. I'm now thinking I'm okay with that. I mean, they're irrational characters. Yeah.
In addition to the fact that because at first I was thinking the same thing too. Like, okay, these characters, I get that they're mentally unstable, but they are falling for each other a little fast. But then there was a point in the movie where they, like, narratively, it was made pretty clear that a significant amount of time had passed, and I was like, okay, I'm more okay with it now.
Yeah. The time had passed, and I'm so on that because, like, sure, you can say this time has passed and now they're all in love, but it's like, could I see the steps to that? If I'm supposed to care about their relationship, can I see some of that?
The thing is, I think they did a little bit of a cheat that I think works, where we saw all the steps before the little time skip, and then they did like kind of the time skip.
Yeah.
So like, it's a weird little narrative trick where they were able to show us the relationship developing in real time and quickly, but then also justifying it being like a solid relationship by doing a time skip.
Yeah. And with this movie, we do focus more on the relationship, but after seeing the 94 movie, since the focus does wind up being on Eric, I do like the previous movie where Eric is pretty much the Crow within the first 15 minutes, and we see flashbacks throughout of he and Shelley spliced into the movie here and there.
Yeah. That, and with Eric being the Crow for basically the entire movie, we as the audience are free to make a lot more assumptions about their relationship.
Exactly.
And that's by not seeing it, we can imagine how powerful it was.
Exactly.
With the new one basically being a tragic romance more so than a revenge story, the movie has to do the work to convince us that these characters love each other rather than leaving it up to us to imagine it.
Yes, exactly. And the original Crow movie does that very well because you're seeing Eric's pain. You see this pain, and then after you've seen the pain, you see flashback of essentially why he's in so much pain, and it just resonates more. It hits us more, and like you said, like the relationship we see, if you count up all the flashbacks in the original Crow, is a lot less screen time than the relationship we see in the new movie, but their love is so much more compelling because it's like what you said, like it leaves our imagination of this love that they've had, because another part of it is we don't see the origin, we don't see them meeting.
Yeah.
all the flashbacks we see are in the midst of a relationship. We don't know how long they could be in a relationship.
Yeah.
My imagination is thinking, oh, they've been in a relationship for years.
Yeah.
Like they could even be married or whatever. I don't think they were, but it's like years of this relationship.
Yeah, it's basically the same trick that that like a lot of good horror movies use, but for romance instead. Because in a horror movie, the less you see of the monster, the more of it is left to your imagination.
Yes.
And that makes it scarier. Because when the movie has to convince you the monster is scary visually, there's very little that can actually be done to make that convincing. So like leaving it to your imagination is a much stronger horror technique. So apparently we've learned through The Crow that is true of romance as well.
Yeah.
The
Oh, yeah,
less
yeah.
of the
100%.
relationship you see, the more of the relationship is left to your imagination, the more powerfully romantic the relationship can be. Just like in real life.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. That was a joke. But
Oh, no. I that's all my relationship. No. No,
oh,
but
well, at least you've gotten to have relationships.
but yeah, like that's 100% with both these movies is I one see a great relationship between Eric and Shelley in the 94 movie with how little I see it, and I understand or get that pain that Eric is feeling with how little I'm seeing. And then with this one, I've seen all of it, and I don't feel the same pain that Eric feels.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like for as much work as this movie puts into trying to convince us how much Shelley and Eric care about each other, this is gonna sound a little out of left field, but I think it's a valid comparison. I was more convinced by the romance between Lucy Gray and Snow in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And that's a romance that you're actively meant to question from both sides for the entire film. Like that entire relationship, as far as the audience is concerned, is built on the idea that it might be 100% fabrication for the sake of survival on either side.
Right.
So like, if I'm more convinced by a relationship I'm supposed to believe could potentially be just both people lying to each other than I am by a relationship that's supposed to be a completely sincere presentation of two broken people finding each other in a dark and careless world, then the latter, I think, didn't do its job quite effectively enough.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
I still bought into it for the sake of the story, because that's what you're supposed to do if you want to
right.
enjoy what you're watching. But at the same time, I do agree with you that, like, yeah, it's not, it doesn't quite feel like it made it all the way there.
Yeah. The next few things I have are some nitpick stuff, and then I think it'll go into more broad, bigger stuff with this movie. But these nitpick things were funny to me at the time. Let me find them real quick. Okay, so again, these are very nitpick. Shelley's friend, the person we don't see who is letting her stay at his apartment. This guy, to me, has a pretty cringe wardrobe for 2024.
Yes.
I get Eric is kind of
he is rich though.
He is rich though, so yeah, you
got to take that
the
into
rich's
account.
fashion and wardrobe is different than ours. But I get Eric is kind of like a free spirit sort of guy. Let's do whatever we want sort of guy.
Oh, you're about to talk about the fur coat, aren't you?
The fur coat he was wearing on the bridge. That sort of stuff sucks. It looks so bad.
Yeah.
like I'm not look, do whatever you want, but I don't know. The average person would clown on you if you're wearing this fur coat and you're trying to look like gothic or whatever on this bridge, and you got a very gothic earring and all this stuff. I don't know. It just
I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. It looked like they were supposed to be in New York in this movie, and New Yorkers know better than to like just clown on someone who could very easily be a psycho.
Yeah.
And B, those people see weirder things every single day.
That's true. What I will say, if this is New York, these streets are very empty. These
They
are
are,
the
yeah.
emptiest streets I've ever seen of a big city.
It's definitely movie New York.
Yeah, well, I wasn't even thinking this is New York. Just big city in general, or city in general.
Yeah.
These streets are empty in the day. They're empty in the night. Like, where is everyone? Does everyone live here? They live in a city, but they go to the farm. They go to they go to the outer towns outside the city to work. Is this some reverse thing going on here? Like,
okay, they're all going to operas and raves. That's
yeah.
Those are the two recreational activities.
Yeah.
Other than going out and getting high at a lake, but
Yeah, exactly.
Like the two recreational activities we're shown that people do regularly in this movie are going to raves if you're poor and operas if you're rich.
Yes. There's nothing else.
Nothing else. You're either a poor person high on ecstasy, because they were definitely on ecstasy at that where the guy in the hoodie confronted Shelley.
Yeah.
Like because she's like, I'm gonna go get water, and as soon as she said, I was like, oh, those two, okay, yeah. They're extremely high right now. Because that's the thing about ecstasy, it dehydrates you.
Yeah. Which, I mean, once they escape the rehab facility, when are they not high?
Yeah.
I'm not bashing the movie for that. I'm just saying every scene we see, they are either in a rave or they're popping pills or whatever. Like, they're always high.
Yeah, no, yeah, I can attest to that. Like, literally, not literally, a decent number of my friends are stoners, and yeah, like they're always high. So. No, not always. That's a joke.
Like, when they're sleeping, I guess, is the only time where they're not true. Like, which even when they're sleeping, they're a little bit high.
Yeah.
It's where
I was gonna say they're probably sleeping because they got too high and they needed to lay down.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, no, they're definitely on some kind of substance, basically from the moment they get out of that facility.
Yeah. So that was one nitpick with the coat. It was really the coat. The coat really bugged me. I was like,
you know what? There's your explanation right there. He was high when he picked the coat.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
He's like, ooh, fur coat. I get to touch it whenever I want.
And I'm not even an old man. I'm not even like a prude, and I'm not even saying this is like prudish, like speaking, but it's like I don't know. These kids, they're older than me, but these kids, come on. These rich
I'm a prude.
kids.
Have some respect for yourselves.
Yeah.
Clean up. Get a job.
And this leads into me talking about the rich kids thing. This leads into another nitpick I have here. So I get Shelley is kind of a rich kid / knows a lot of rich people. We kind of see that with her mom and how her mom's in this bubble with the bad guy, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which can explain her rich apartment and her not having a job, etc.
Yeah.
But what does Eric do to afford his weird apartment?
I was operating under the assumption he was squatting.
He was squatting?
I think he was squatting.
That makes more sense than anything now, because thinking about it, it's a pretty big apartment for a city.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big apartment. And also, why does he have all those mannequins in that apartment?
They're probably
squatting,
not his.
Yeah, squatting does make a lot more sense now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the thing is, I'm going to be honest with you, it didn't look like an apartment.
Yeah, it was almost like a
I think he was just squatting in some kind of storage, warehouse that someone was using for storage is what it looked like.
That makes more sense to me now. Okay, I will cross out that negative because that does make more sense to me. I didn't get that at first. I was like, what kind of apartment is this?
It's
what the hell's with
probably
these mannequins?
it's probably a warehouse someone was using for storage and genuinely doesn't care about. Like
That
some
makes
company,
sense.
some company is probably using it for storage. Nobody really knows it's there anymore. Eric probably stumbled on it and thought like, hey, here's a nice rent-free place to live.
That's true. That's true. Okay. I'll give you that, Crow 2024.
And make my music, my art.
Because that was the one thing with the 94 movie is I understood Eric, not only his love with Shelley, but I understood what he did aside from loving Shelley. He was a rock star. He wasn't like a big rock star, but that's how he made his money.
Yeah.
Like he jammed out with his band.
Yeah.
They went on tours and stuff. They made
Jammed
money
out
that
with
way.
his band out.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, this one, maybe you have an answer for this. This is another nitpick. In the scene where Eric gets shot by the shotgun
Yes.
and he falls into the bathtub,
Yes.
why was the bathtub filled up?
I had exactly that question when that. So I don't have an answer. Maybe he got to his friend's. His friend had just drawn a nice warm bath. He's like, I'm about to have a it's a me night. I'm having me time. This is gonna be a good night for old whatever my name is. And then Eric shows up. He's like, man, I need your help. He's like, dude, I was about to take a steaming hot bath.
Damn it! I had a bath bomb and everything, man.
Yeah. and then the guy gets shot in the eye.
He wasn't able to get his bath.
He wasn't able to get his bath. He could have had one last nice, relaxing bath before he died, but nope.
Yeah.
Eric showed up and ruined all that.
He did. That was Eric's fault.
And you know what? Eric got the bath.
Eric got the bath. Yeah.
I'm sure he was dying, but he got the bath. But
he came back.
Like narratively, yeah, he came back. He had to trade his soul for it, but he came back. But narratively though, like the movie had established that water is his portal to the in-between world.
No, I get that.
That's like really the only reason. Like, unfortunately, that's as flimsy a reason as this movie needed to have that bathtub filled with water.
Yeah.
Like, we are kind of left to fill in the gaps. I don't know. Maybe his friend was going to slit his wrists and kill himself tonight. Maybe he got what he wanted in the end. Maybe that bullet that went through his eye, and his last thought was like, oh, thank God I don't have to do it myself.
Finally. I don't have the guilt of killing myself.
Yeah. I don't have to live with the guilt of killing myself. That's one murder that I couldn't take having on my conscience. That bullet drills through his eye, and he is like, oh, sweet release.
Oh, thank you.
And now someone else has to deal with the spiritual consequences. This guy gave me a free ticket to heaven. From the Catholic perspective.
But yeah, the bathtub thing was definitely a nitpick for me. I get the reason, because the water thing, he gets pushed by the guy in the train, goes in water, that sort of thing.
I had exactly the same thought when that came up. I thought to myself, like, why is that bathtub filled with water?
Yeah, it's filled up all the way.
Yeah.
Like
that bathtub was really filled up with water. Like, if anybody got in there, it was like
it would overfill.
Out.
Yeah.
Like, he had that bathtub filled up all the way. What was he gonna do with that bathtub? Was he gonna make bathtub wine?
Yeah, he wasn't even getting in it. Yeah.
Was he gonna use it to make some kind of drug? Is there a drug? I don't know, man. Because like every character in this movie feels like they're a part of some kind of druggy culture.
True.
Maybe there's some kind of drug that you make in your bathtub that like needs you to fill it all the way up.
Maybe that's what he was gonna do. Yeah, because their whole film
tattoo ink.
Yeah, their whole friend group.
It's tattoos that get you high. And when he gets shot in the eye, his last thought is, "Oh, I hope they don't find my narcotic tattoo ink recipe." I wanted that to go to the grave with me. I didn't get the chance to burn the blueprints.
Let me see. I think it starts to stray away from nitpicks here. Let me see. I'm indifferent on the new Crow look. I don't think it's awful. I don't think it's great.
It manages to. I feel like it manages to just narrowly avoid Leto Joker cringe with like the tattoos.
Yeah.
Because the tattoos look a little more genuine, like something that someone would get.
Yeah.
Whereas like Joker just straight up having the word broken tattooed on his forehead
Right. Yeah.
That's really cringy and stupid.
Yeah.
But like the stuff that Eric had on his face, like I've seen people with those tattoos.
Oh yeah. Like I know a couple people with like all of those body tattoos and like tattoos above the eyebrow, face, all that stuff.
Those
Like I know this, like these people exist today.
Yeah,
So
those all look like actual tattoos that a real human being would get on their face and body. So like it manages to narrowly avoid like Leto Joker cringe.
Yeah. What I will say, and I don't know if this is entirely a negative, I will say when Eric truly becomes the vengeful being in the last act of the movie, basically when he gets out of the bathtub, he's looking in the mirror, putting on the war paint sort of thing.
Yeah.
You will not get this, and I doubt anyone listening will. But he looks like the school shooter from the first season of American Horror Story. And it very much gave me the vibes of that character, especially when he was looking in the mirror and right before he went to go shoot up the opera house. It very much gave me those vibes.
Yeah. Oh, another thing too that I think helped like slightly to dodge some cringe is so the blade that he carries into that opera house with him is very clearly of Japanese origin.
Mm-hmm.
But so you've got this gothic, face tattoos, war paint. He's wearing a long black duster jacket and carrying something that looks like a katana. I don't believe it's a katana. I think katanas are a bit longer. But he's carrying something that resembles a katana. So he looks a little bit like an incel fantasy, but at the same time though, I feel like they kind of get a little bit around it with the fact that he finds it in his friend's apartment. It's not his.
That's true.
It's not his sword. He finds it. He's like, oh, a sharp object, and he takes it. It's like, so that's so like when you go into it with okay, he's not using it because he likes swords. He's using it because it's the first sharp object he could get his hands on.
Yeah.
That also kind of helped narrowly avoid some of that cringe. He's not the new Crow isn't a weeb, everybody. Calm down. His friend was a weeb, but he got shot in the eye. He got what he deserved.
Yeah. And I'm not even saying he's a weeb, but if someone's listening, look up I forgot who's the actor that played Quicksilver in Days of Future Past.
Evan Peters.
Look up Evan Peters, American Horror Story Season 1 school shooter. You'll see what he looks like. And then put it next to the poster or whatever of this. To me, it looks a lot. They look very similar.
Yeah.
In terms of makeup and all that. This is another nitpick one I have. Right. So
pick those nits.
Speaking of the opera house.
Yes.
I personally think the audience panicked too fast when Eric walked on stage with the severed heads.
I thought the same thing. Like if I was in the audience, I would have been like, oh, those are really convincing.
Exactly. I would think it's somehow a part of the show. Like, yes, I know the actors were bowing and the play was over, but if I was in the audience, I saw that. I saw someone who looked like Eric. He looks very theatrical.
He does. Like, he looks like he's supposed to be a part of some kind of production.
Exactly. And that play as well is like very weird and gothic itself. Like the makeup and stuff they have to where it's like, oh yeah, I could see this somehow tying into it. And yeah, I would have thought this was just somehow part of the show. Like eventually, yes, we're all going to panic because someone's like, "That's not a part of the show." Like, that's my boss.
Those are real severed heads.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, if I was just random person in the audience, I'd be like, "Oh, this is interesting."
Yeah, everyone insta panicking is. That was a little bit much. I agree with that, and I had the same thought as I was watching it at my show.
My number one criticism, this is like getting to the end of negatives. My number one criticism with the movie is, to me, it was ultimately boring. I liked Eric and Shelley's little dynamic, like I'd mentioned before, in the rehab facility. I didn't find that boring at all. I want to see an A24 movie of that. And I also like the opera scene. But those are it in terms of stuff I liked with the movie. There's stuff that like I didn't hate with the movie. I didn't hate any of this movie. I should say that. None of this movie I hate, by no means. And none of it I strongly dislike. It's just it was just kind of boring to where I don't even have a strong positive feeling or a strong negative feeling on it. It's just there.
Yeah.
And with that, I will personally say this is worse than Madam Web for me.
Yeah, because at least Madam Web could keep you entertained.
Madam Web is bad, but there's a good 15 to 20 minutes of that movie that are good bad.
Yeah.
That I like, as well as the movie's just so weird that it can kind of keep you entertained, but not really. I'm not saying it's a good bad movie, but there's 15 20 minutes that are definitely good bad.
Yeah.
The Crow is bad because it's boring. That's the reason it's bad. It's nothing else other than it being boring, because ultimately it is a competent like cinematography and all that stuff. It's no issue there. Exactly. It's a well-made movie. It's just ultimately forgettable is the issue.
Yeah. And I feel like this is another one that I have to agree with, because there was a point at the movie where I actually checked my phone for the time, which is never something you want an audience member doing.
I did that in the part that it shouldn't be happening. I did that right before he's about to go to the main bad guy's mansion.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
I did it significantly sooner than that.
Well, there were other points where like I was like kind of bored or whatever. But when I actually looked at my phone was when he's going to the mansion, because I was like, okay, he's going to the mansion. I'm assuming this is going to be a 20+ minute scene or something.
Yeah.
It's not, but like I was just trying to, I was trying to check and just see like, oh, like it's been going a little while, it feels like.
Yeah, for me, I don't remember exactly what scene it was that I was checking my phone, but when I checked my phone, it was 9:00, and I went to an 8:00 showing. So with like half an hour of previews, because it's about how much they show you.
So like 30 minutes in.
That's basically 30 minutes of movie. Like I looked at my phone and I thought, oh my God, this movie's only been going for 30 minutes.
It was probably while they were just like at raves and stuff. Because
it was probably right before the scene where they died.
Yeah, it's probably just like, is this movie just going to be like people in their late 20s just getting high at raves? Is this the movie?
Like I knew what it was going to turn into, but I thought to myself, like, how long will it take for Eric to become the Crow? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How long before they die? It was basically what I was thinking.
That's the downside with this being like a property that already has a movie. It feels similar to Alien. I mean, Alien Romulus is a better movie. I think Alien Romulus is fine. I don't think it's great. But a similar thing to that where, well, actually, no, it's different. Because Alien Romulus, once they actually did get to the face huggers and xenomorph stuff, that's when I started checking out. So never mind. It's opposite.
I have the opposite problem. Once they got
but with
I was
this,
like, boring. Go back to human drama.
Exactly. With this, the thing is, like, with the Brandon Lee Crow movie, with the comic, like, most people going to see this likely have seen one of those. I'm saying that's probably at least 50% of the audience, because if you look at the box office, it's not doing good. So clearly it's people who know about the Crow. Maybe they didn't even see the movies before, but they know the premise. They know this person loves, gets killed, and it's revenge movie.
Yeah, and the thing is, even within the Crow property itself, that's not like a premise exclusive to Eric Draven as a character.
Yeah, exactly.
Not only are there sequel films to Brandon Lee's Crow movie, there are also sequel comics in which Eric Draven is not the Crow. He does get replaced by other people who need vengeance.
Yeah, but the overall theme is vengeance with whatever iteration it is. But with the most popular ones, that being the Brandon Lee movie and the first original comic, like, everyone, most people going to go see this are just waiting for it to get to that point, to the revenge point. Like we know this character is going to die eventually. It sounds bad. I like FKA Twigs in this movie, but let's get to it already.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my gosh, and the way that they die in this movie is so horrible.
I'm trying to remember how they die.
They put plastic bags over their heads.
Oh, yeah. That was really bad.
That was, I mean, now I'm not saying that it was poorly done in the movie. It was, appropriately shocking and horrifying. But, like, that's the thing, though, is it's shocking and horrifying. It's just one of the most horrible things to think about, just to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not like a negative criticism of the movie. That's just a personal thing. Like,
yeah.
I don't like thinking about that.
Yeah, it's really bad. And I'm not saying like they were trying to like one up the Brandon Lee them getting killed thing or anything like that, but I guess that they had to think of like a horrific way, such as getting suffocated with plastic bags, because the Brandon Lee one is very brutal. It's very, very brutal.
Yeah,
like Eric gets shot. He can't do anything, and he has to witness the person he loves, like, get raped and killed.
Yeah.
It's horrific. It's horrifying.
Yeah. Which I think that also presents another aspect they were trying to avoid with this movie is audiences these days are significantly more sensitive to representations of sexual assault in media.
Yeah.
So, and like one thing that, especially with as more like built up as a character as Shelley is in this version,
it would have been bad.
You do not want to do that to her as a character.
Yeah, no, that's it's extremely tough to do that no matter what. But if you happen to do it in your narrative, it almost has to be the original Crow route where like we barely see any of the character.
Yeah.
It is one of those things where you build up this character we've seen the past 30 minutes, who is essentially our main character.
Yeah, but then you're also stuck with the criticism of the fact that when it is a character you barely know, they only exist to be assaulted. So
that's true.
It's the catch-22. There's no winning with that, which is why it's probably best to just avoid it altogether.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree with that.
Because the thing is, like, did you ever see The Sopranos?
No.
Well, in The Sopranos, spoilers for The Sopranos for anyone who is interested in watching it and hasn't yet. There's a scene a few seasons in where Tony's therapist, Dr. Melfi, is assaulted. And the episode itself is very focused on her and how it affects her. I think as far as like tastefully depicting something like, well, tasteful is not a great word to describe The Sopranos, but like as far as like doing I guess a sensitive depiction of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
aftermath of that sort of thing. Like the show's focus on her and her anger and feeling of violation was very appropriate. So like if you're gonna, but the thing is though, it is still an extremely uncomfortable part of the show, and it comes
Yes, that's true.
completely out of nowhere. And so like it's with a character that you know, it's with a character that hopefully as an audience member you respect a great deal. So like oh my god, sorry, excuse me. So like it's one of those things where it's like it's like it's this is, obviously this isn't comparable to the real world, but like as far as a narrative goes, it's like watching it happen to a friend.
Yeah, yeah.
So and that's terrible. So yeah, you definitely don't want it. So like if that had happened to Shelley in this movie, that would have been terrible because it's like watching it happen to someone like you feel like you've gotten to know.
Exactly.
But then, like I said, at the same time, you come up against the fridging problem.
Yeah, that's
because fridging is more than just like killing the character or causing them severe injury. Like killing is anything of like significant trauma occurring to a female character just for the sake of progressing a male character's journey.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons they focused on Shelley so much for the first half was to try, and also came up with the whole revival thing, was to avoid the fridging problem.
Yeah, I personally, with the 94 movie, I'm not saying this is what you're saying, but I could see people making this argument. I personally, with the 94 movie, don't see what happened to Shelley as fridging. Yes, it's a big part in our main character. I see more of what happened to Shelley as like, this city is just messed up. The city in the 94 movie is a character of its own. On Devil's Night, like this, and like, I'm not saying like what happened to Shelley is what I like here, but what I like with the 94 movie is the city itself just feels like a character. I like, compared to this recent movie, I like how awful the city feels, or this part of the city at least. Like it's very gothic as well. The city's very gothic. It's very dark. It's dirty. Like the city is this built thing, whereas in the 2024 movie, like this is just some city. Like
you said, the streets are empty.
Exactly.
The city's not a character in the new one.
Yeah. Like the 94 movie, like I genuinely was like focused on the city and the streets a lot, because I was like, oh my gosh, like brilliant writing, because it makes me like actually focus on a setting. But yeah, it's just like it's so awful, and has a distinct style as well in terms of the gothicness and darkness and stuff.
And I agree with you in terms of like, because also like what happens with Eric and Shelley is, you know, obviously it's the inciting incident of the plot for the movie.
Yeah.
So like, and people, you know, a lot of people don't really understand what fridging is anymore. Anyway, they think it's just any terrible thing happening to a female character. People, you know, aren't often aware of the fact that in order for it to be fridging, it's an awful thing happening to a female character for the sake of progressing a male character's arc.
Exactly.
That's why the Killing Joke is an example of fridging, whereas let's say, unfortunately, it's a struggle to come up with a good example of a female character's death not being a part of a male character's arc.
Right.
Because fridging is a lot more common than we think it is, but also not as common as some people think it is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's say there's a fridging joke in She-Hulk, right? In the She-Hulk TV show, where she says to the audience, "Oh, hopefully they don't fridge me in the last episode." That would not have been an example of fridging, because what male character's arc would have been progressed by that?
Right.
That would have been entirely something that just happened to She-Hulk. Also, it's a stupid joke to make in a show where her name is also the title. Anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
That's probably like the one and only, not the one and only. I could
Yeah.
probably, if I thought about it, come up with more negative criticisms of She-Hulk.
Mhm.
But we're not in that. We're pro She-Hulk at this podcast so far.
We're pro She-Hulk, but we can point out some negative things with it.
Yeah, there could still be some flaws. But yeah, like that if that had happened, if she had died in that show, like her joke suggested, that would not have been actually an example of fridging.
No, no.
But like, yeah, but like Barbara Gordon getting crippled by the Joker, for not just her dad's arc, but also for Batman's in that story. That's fridging.
Yeah.
A Green Lantern's girlfriend being murdered and stuffed in a refrigerator. the scene that the term was coined for, that's fridging. But yeah, I agree with you that also because we don't really know Shelley as a character in the first one until like except through flashbacks and stuff.
Right.
She's less a character and more a plot device in that regard, so it's harder to justify calling it out as fridging. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even though fridging traditionally does reduce female characters to little more than plot devices anyway, but at the same time, I don't know, it's a really complicated topic. A lot of the times I jump into it without really feeling prepared to discuss it, but whatever. In this movie, in this version of The Crow, in the 2024 version, had they not developed Shelley as a character and had they not offered her resurrection as a reward, that like I personally don't feel like that would have been fridging, but a lot of fridging accusations would have been lobbed at the movie over it, and unfortunately, that's something that when it comes to mass-produced media, writers and producers and everybody involved in the creative process has to be aware of is, will people call this out as fridging? Yeah. I mean, for God's sake, people call out Gamora and Black Widow's deaths as fridging in the Avengers movies when there's a stronger argument for that when it comes to Gamora than I think for Black Widow. Even though in Black Widow, the focus of mourning is on the 5 male characters from the original lineup. But the thing is, it wasn't supposed to be, oh, look at these 5 dudes being sad that their girlfriend died. It was look at the 5 remaining founders of the Avengers mourning the loss of a friend, right? Yeah. Like, I feel like it's an unfortunate coincidence that the sole female founder of that version of the Avengers is the one who died. And so you're left with 5 dudes being sad. But Black Widow didn't die specifically to progress 5 male characters' emotional arcs in that movie. She died as the culmination of her own. Yeah. Because for the whole point of that scene was that for the first time in her life, Natasha felt like she had someone worth dying for. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's true.
Whereas with Gamora, there's a stronger argument that like her death progresses Thanos' arc, but at the same time, Thanos is the villain, right? Right. Every character's death progresses his arc. Yeah. Like, yes, Thanos is presented like the protagonist of that movie, but that does not mean we have to empathize with him. That does not mean we have to see him as the good guy. He's still the villain of that movie. It's okay. It's really okay that if one out of the countless characters he kills in that movie just happens to be a girl. Right. Yeah. And a lot of people point to it that like, oh, it's presented as love. Thanos, says that it's supposed to be like this affirmation that he loves her. It's supposed to represent that he believes he loves her. And the belief that you love someone is often strong enough to translate to love. Like, love is complicated, right? Just because Thanos was abusive and horrible to her doesn't mean that somewhere in his mind he doesn't love her. You know what I mean? Like, just because he didn't treat her with love doesn't mean that he doesn't love her. That doesn't justify the way he treated her. It doesn't excuse anything. But it's like it's still not impossible for him to feel love for her. So like people don't approach anything with any measure of nuance anymore. This was not supposed to be what I was talking about right now. This is a review for The Crow. But it's so hard. It's so hard to keep the brain straight because we're stuck in this. Brandon, I feel like you and me are stuck in this absolute hell of just the media illiterate being the ones in control of the narrative.
Yeah, 100%. Which is
so
why
frustrating. It's so frustrating trying to talk to people who don't engage with or understand anything that they take in at any deeper than the absolute surface level.
Yeah. Which is why I save it all. I don't pay attention to it, or I do pay attention to it because it's on everything.
Yeah.
But I just save my thoughts for this. for this.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Anyway, Crow boring.
It's essentially like wasted breath for me to try to talk to someone about it because like there's no changing minds or anything like that happening. So I was like, yeah. Like I'll just talk to Teo about it.
Pretty much.
But
I'm gonna be honest, it's a little weird how rarely you and I disagree on things.
Yeah. It's not much. Like usually, if anything, I don't think there's ever been maybe there has been like once, but I can't think of it. I don't think there's ever been a thing where it's like Teo really liked this thing and I really dislike this thing.
Yeah.
I think at the most it's usually like I really like something and Teo was like, yeah, it was okay. Yeah. Or vice versa.
And honestly though, like when a friend tells me they enjoyed something, I rarely find it so important to reinforce my dislike of it that I'm going to voice strong opinions.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because like for me, I'm like, oh, I didn't care much for it, but I don't want my lack of enthusiasm to take away your enjoyment of it. So I'm just going to leave it at, I thought it was all right, and let you talk about how good you thought it was.
Yeah. I think that's a good point.
Because to me, that's more like, even if I didn't like a thing, I'd rather listen to someone who liked it talk about it than someone who didn't like it talk about it.
Yeah.
Or even talk about how much I disliked it. Now, if it's a thing that I've seen and you haven't seen, or if it's a thing we've both seen and neither of us liked it, then it's way more fun to rip into it and be a lot harsher.
Oh, yeah.
Because then you got a buddy there ripping into it with you, or listening to you rip into it if he hasn't seen it. But yeah, like it's for us, I think it's easier just to be like, yeah, it was all right, or I didn't like it very much, and be a little more neutral on it if the other guy liked it.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and speaking of stuff I liked, that I know Teo likes, it's one of his favorite movies, the '94 Crow. This was good. Okay, like rewatching it, I remember watching it in high school, and I was like, yeah, it was all right.
Where did you
watching it this time? I have a greater appreciation of it. I don't love it, but I think it is a good movie.
A quick question.
Yeah.
Where did you watch it? Because I haven't watched it in a long time.
How did I watch it? Oh, Amazon Prime.
Okay,
cool. I think it was on Prime. Yeah.
Cool. I sometime this week I'll watch it again.
It's on Prime and something else, because now I remember it popped up when I typed in The Crow streaming. It popped up on a couple things.
The Crow streaming, and for some reason there was just a picture of Brandon Lee peeing.
I was like, oh, okay, I'll watch this for an hour and a half. This is the movie? What the heck?
It's just an hour and a half loop of Brandon Lee peeing.
No, it's just an hour and a half of him peeing. It is that much pee. It just
sometimes you just gotta let go of a nice long dad piss.
But yeah, the '94 movie.
Dad piss.
The '94 movie had it just had character to it. Like I already mentioned, like the city and stuff like that. The city feels like a character, and also I like when it's used in movies clearly, and not super clearly. The beginning of it shows the city, and it shows like a crow eye view of like navigating through the city airily,
Yeah.
and it's a miniature, but I like it. It's nice. And I get to see how like weird and gothic and kind of gross and dark this city looks. And then as it goes on, like the city very much is just this horrible thing, especially Devil's Night itself. So I like that. I also liked there's a specific thing I'm trying to remember exactly. What was it? It's slipping my brain. This is what happens, folks. You get Brandon talking for 3 hours, and his brain turns to mush. I remember what it was. The bad guys.
Yes.
The bad guys in The Crow, the 94 one, are truly crazy bad guys.
Yeah.
And that makes them stand out. That makes each of them stand out, I should say, not just all together. They each stand out. There are 8 distinct bad guys that I remember from the 94 movie.
Oof.
8 that I remember. There might be more, but the ones I remember, there's the 4 ones from the bad guy crew, like the people that Brandon Lee is truly going after to kill.
Yeah.
There's 4 of them, and each of them feel distinct. Each of them have their own weird craziness to them. And also, like, yeah, it's truly crazy. Like it's weird, almost feels like 80s type of stuff. But it's 94. But yeah, like them in the bar, one of them swallows a bullet. One of them puts a cigar out on their tongue. One of them eats a cigarette.
Oh my god.
And then one of them,
the average tavern scene I describe when I'm DMing a Dungeons and Dragons.
like it was very much felt like a 80s bad guy type thing, but I liked it. It gave it character, made them distinct, made me also be like, oh my gosh, these people are literally insane. Just a crazy bad guy crew. That's just the 4-person crew there. There's also the pedophile pawn shop owner.
Oh my god. There's so much I don't remember about that movie. It's been such a long time.
Well, I mentioned pedophile pawn shop owner. They never show anything like that. It's one of the bad guys as he's leaving. He like makes a comment about the guy, and part of the comment is like, "You pedophile," blah 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 blah. And so it's like, okay, like I don't think this is something the guy is just insulting him with. I think he actually is a pedophile, and the guy's just like insulting him, but telling the truth, sort of thing.
Oh, you kid diddler.
But yeah, so the pawn shop owner also feels like a distinct villain, like just a scummy, I mean, essentially it shows it in the pawn shop. Like people will, the crew will come to him with like rings, like wedding rings and stuff like that. Oh, because that was another thing. Eric and Shelley were going to get married. That was a big thing. They come to him with rings, and he knows that like the people, like how they got the rings, they killed people and just stole their wedding rings. But he's scummy because he's just like, yeah, I'm thriving off of all this chaos, off of them robbing people and killing people. So he's a very scummy person, memorable. And then also,
people come in here with their babies and sell them to me.
I'm like, I'll sell it to the main bad guy. That guy,
I harvest them for parts.
That guy will put it on a little bait, like a little small altar thing, and burn it, and then whiff it in, like he does with an eyeball. He sets an eyeball on fire and it's breathing it in through his nostrils. It's so weird. It's so gross, but these are like distinct bad guy things I remember. And with the main bad guy, speaking of him and his sister, these are bad guy people.
Yeah.
One, it's his sister, and they have like sexual relations with each other. It's really messed up.
Yeah.
There's that, and then they're also just like like I said, doing weird demonic ritual stuff of like burning an eyeball and breathing it in to get the power of this person, sort of thing. Um, and I kind of I like this more than the main bad guy in the 2024 one. This, what they're doing is like demonic ritual type stuff, but you never really see the supernatural stuff come from them. It's more like they're it's like satanic panic sort of thing of the
Yeah.
80s, where it's like these devil worshippers and they're doing this stuff because they think they'll get something from it or whatever.
It's the what they're doing is superstition, but
Exactly.
Eric has true power.
Exactly. And yeah, it's just, it's very distinct, as well as a minor one, but Tony Todd is the main henchman. Like, Tony Todd's the main bad guy henchman, Candyman as the main henchman. And yeah, he stands out as well. That's 8 bad guys that clearly stood out to me. I still remember them right now. 2024 movie. I remember Blonde Lady, not much about her, but I remember her. And I remember, I think his name is, it slipped again. The guy from X-Men Origins.
Yeah, the guy from X-Men Origins. Yeah.
Those are the 2 bad guys I remember from this movie.
Other than them, like the only other guy I really remember is the dude from the car who's like, I killed you.
Yeah.
And I only remember it because he had a humorous interaction with Eric.
Yeah. So it's not even like a character thing then. Whereas like these 8 I mentioned, like they all have distinct things about them.
Yeah. Like if that dude in the car hadn't mentioned that he was the one who killed Eric, I wouldn't have remembered, even as I was sitting there watching the movie, that he was specifically the guy who killed Eric.
Exactly. Even Blonde Lady is also teeters on like,
who are you?
Remembrance. Yeah, there's, I don't know. The villains, these are like true bad guys in this 94 movie.
Yeah.
Let me see. Is there anything else I'm trying to go? Oh, okay. There is only there's one thing I didn't like about the 94 Crow movie. That could be improved today, but maybe you can argue it gives it some of its slightly cheesy charm. About 3 to 4 times in the movie, it transitions to the next scene on a freeze frame. It freeze frames the scene, or it fades to black. That happens at least once. It'll fade to black and then transition to the next scene. But most of the time, it'll freeze frame the scene and transition.
Weird.
Those transition styles could be a lot better, even for 1994 standards. Like, that's not great. But those are nitpicks. Those are very small things. That's just like maybe 4 transition things.
Yeah, I definitely have to watch that movie again this week because it's been such a long time. I know it's one of my favorites, but it's been so long that there are few things that I remember.
Yeah. Like I don't really have much negatives with the 94 movie. It was just that one nitpick with those transitions. There's some cheesy things in the movie, especially the first 30 minutes. There's some cheesy stuff in it, and some throughout the movie. But honestly, that cheesiness just kind of helps give the movie character.
Yeah. Cheese makes everything taste better.
Yes. Like this movie has a distinct look to it, has a distinct vibe to it. And that's just something the 2024 movie doesn't really have.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have a distinct look, a distinct vibe. So overall, 94 movie, good movie.
Yeah.
It feels distinct. It's entertaining. There's no part where I felt bored or is checking the time sort of thing. I definitely can't say the same with the 2024 movie, but
yeah. Yeah, I'd have to say that I can't. So okay, I again, it's been like 10 years since I've seen the original The Crow movie, so I can't quite speak to the comparison in terms of raw quality yet. I'll be able to after this week because I'm definitely going to sit down and watch it at some point. But I will say, yeah, the 2024's The Crow, starring Bill Skarsgård. It's not bad as we
No, no.
it's competently made, it's well acted.
It's just forgettable.
It's got some interesting action right towards the end. But yeah, largely forgettable, very slowly paced.
Yeah.
And yeah, at some point most people are going to be thinking about checking the time, being like, okay, how much longer do we got? So yeah, I can't recommend it for anyone who isn't like personally invested in the premise of The Crow, basically.
Yeah.
Like if I wouldn't recommend this as your introduction to The Crow.
Yeah, and even I'm interested in the premise. Even with me being interested in the premise, I like I guess just rewatch the '94 movie instead of watching that. Wait till it comes on streaming or someone illegally uploads the opera scene on YouTube and watch the opera scene.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that really really stands out with the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Probably the most in-depth review we've given something in a while. I think we went deeper on this one than we did with even Deadpool and Wolverine.
With The Crow, I think we talked about for like 2 hours. So
yeah.
Yeah. So I'll probably split this up a little bit. I'll have the 2-hour Crow section and then the stuff we talked about at the beginning.
The 1 hour really personal stuff we talked about.
Yes.
Let's have the title that one, like Teo and Brandon get really personal.
Yeah.
Then parentheses, this one's uncomfortable. Asterisk, gone wrong in all caps.
Yes. It ends with us talking about Yu-Gi-Oh though.
Yeah.
But yes, is there anything else you have?
I tried a new video game today.
Ooh.
Let me find it in my library so I can remember the name. It's called Moon Hunters.
Moon Hunters. Let me see.
It's an indie game. It's got like a pixel art style. And it's I want to say it's an RPG. Like it's got very strong RPG elements. It's a fantasy game.
Mm-hmm.
In which every time you play it, you pick like a character, and your character comes fully loaded with like a class and all that.
Mm-hmm.
You pick your character. You can change their name if you want, but I didn't. And you can like pick a color palette basically for their costume, and then you get into it. And it can be multiplayer, up to 4 players. So I definitely want to try and get my friends in on this one because they like multiplayer games, but they almost exclusively like playing competitive ones. And I would like to play something cooperative for once.
Yeah, I get that.
So Moon Hunters does have a co-op option. And what it does is as you play through the game, the way you interact with it dictates how your character is remembered through the legends. And the starting screen for the game starts like with all these empty like pedestal spaces. And then when you every time you complete a run, because the game's story takes place over 5 days, that are, and like exploring one level takes a whole day, right? So you kind of gotta pick which levels you want to explore, and it's very interesting. And at the end of the 5 days, you have your final boss fight, and win or lose, the game ends with that. So it only takes, like, depending on how long it takes you to get through each area, like an hour to 2 hours, maybe. Like I said, depending on how long it takes you to get through each area. It's very, like, runs are very short. But yeah, like I said, with the final boss fight, win or lose, the game ends there, and it will give you an ending based on whether you won or lost, and then whichever character you played as, and how you played them gets recorded in that starting screen with their own pedestal. And the game does give you the option to continue playing as that character on the next run, and you get to keep their stats and abilities. And you basically get to keep how they're remembered. So you can, like, play through the game multiple times as the same character, trying as long as you can to get better and better until you get a good ending. But yeah, it's a really interesting system. It's very much about, and as you play through it, you unlock new aspects of the game world and new classes and starting locations. Because the opening cutscene of the game every time mentions, this is the story, this is what it's about, but the heroes are different every time. The story changes every time we tell it, and it's basically an RPG about how legends change through every retelling.
Yeah, that's cool.
And how a story can be different every time even the same person tells it.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. It's really fun. I like the combat in it in general. It's very basic combat, but it gives you, every character, regardless of class, comes with 3 basic abilities in combat. A basic attack, an AoE, and a dash that lets you get out of danger. So it's pretty interesting, and, like, you can buy upgrades from merchants for your character's specific abilities as you progress through the game, so that when you get to the end of a run with that character, if you choose to pick them up again, they still got all their stats and abilities that you got from the last run, so the next one is easier, and maybe the story ends differently.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the art and stuff, like the somewhat gameplay, but also seeing like the interactions when you're talking with people.
Yeah, it's really it's a really pretty game.
Yeah.
I really like the style. But yeah, Moon Hunters. I recommend it to anyone who's interested, not just in. Okay, I recommend it to anyone who wants to play an RPG, but you don't want to commit your entire life to playing it.
Yeah.
It's something that you can casually pick up, finish in a couple hours, put down. And the thing is, like, even though you finished it in a couple hours, that doesn't have to be the end of the game. Once you pick it up again, you can still play as that same character. And yeah, technically the story is going to be the same every time. But like, as far as the broad strokes of the narrative and what the conflict is about, but like I said, like, the ending can change based on decisions, based on whether you win or lose that final boss fight, which I assume is easier if you have friends playing with you. Because on my first run, I lost that fight. But yeah, it's a really fun game. It's fun combat, fun gameplay, fun mechanics, really fun premise in general, and yeah, like I said, I recommend it to anyone who's looking for a new RPG to play, but doesn't want to have to commit their entire life to playing that RPG, like you would do if you were playing The Witcher or something something relatively comparable.
Yeah, like 100 plus hours sort of thing.
I have tons of RPGs on my list. Let me look at them. Fallout New Vegas.
Yeah.
Far Cry Primal, which I know technically isn't an RPG, but it plays like one.
Right.
Cyberpunk. Any given Assassin's Creed game from the past 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if you don't want to have to, like, schedule time with your wife and kids around playing an RPG. I mean, this one's multiplayer. Play it with your wife and kids.
There you go. Yeah.
Up to 4 players. So hopefully you only have 2 kids.
If you have a third and they're really young, give them a controller that's not plugged in.
Yeah, give them a controller with no batteries in it.
Yeah.
And tell them they're doing a good job every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But then on one of those 10-minute intervals, forget to tell them, so they get just a little bit antsy and like they're like, he hasn't told me that I'm doing a good job in a while. And then like at 11 minutes, tell them they're doing a good job, and like it kind of then they'll feel better about themselves. But like, you know, you got to delay the dopamine hit, the serotonin, whatever comes through your brain with parental affirmation.
Yeah, it's got to feel you're lying, but it has to feel genuine.
Yeah. Don't do that to your children. Anyway, yeah, that's probably all I got. That's really the only new game I tried today. I looked on the Xbox store. There were a ton of games selling for super cheap right now. Like there's a big sale, a couple big sales going on. They've always got some kind of indie sale going on the Xbox store. Yeah. But like there were a couple of other like publisher sales. Like Bandai Namco's doing one right now. But the thing is, like Bandai Namco, they're a Japanese company, and the Japanese do not like discounting their games. So like even when they do discount it, it's hardly anything.
Yeah.
And then but in general, there are a couple of good sales on Xbox Live right now that probably won't still be going by the time this episode comes out.
Right.
So listeners, it's too late.
It's too late, but hey, go on the Xbox store and maybe you'll find something you like.
Oh,
at the time of listening, at the time of listening, there's likely something on sale you'll like.
Yeah, they've always got sales going. They just don't always have interesting sales going.
Right.
But I check every couple weeks just to see if there's something that I'm interested in. So what I got today, I'll give a quick rundown. I got a game called Arise, A Simple Story, which I'm really looking forward to playing because it looks like one of those ones that's going to make me cry. I got... I didn't get this one today, but it's recent. I got... what's the full title of that? Clash Artifacts of Chaos, which I think takes place in the world of Xenoblade, which is...
Okay.
Do you know what Xenoblade is?
Yeah, I never played it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's so completely bizarre. Like upsettingly.
Yeah.
And it baffles me. It boggles my mind. It floors me that it would have a spin-off, that anyone would care enough about Xenoblade for it to get a spin-off. Me and Michael played it once a long time ago, and like we didn't get very far. But it was just so weird. Yeah. But this game looks really interesting. It's like very action focused. It looks kind of martial artsy. I like that sort of thing.
Okay.
Sorry, not Xenoblade. Xenoclash.
Yeah.
Sorry, Xenoblade's a different franchise altogether. It's not even spelt with the same letters. Sorry, Xenoclash is what I meant. But yeah, it's Xenoclash is completely balls crazy. Like I said, upsettingly so. All right, what else did I get? Just to let listeners know what I might be up to in the near future.
Yeah.
Oh, Fury, but it's spelled F-U-R-I. This is a game I've played before, but it was on my PlayStation that pooped out on me. So I got it on Xbox now, and so Fury is a boss rush game where there are no regular enemies. Every single stage is just a boss fight.
Okay.
So I think it's 8 boss fights in a row, and when you lose, it resets you back at the first boss. So, it's difficult, and you got to keep trying. But it's not like you got to play through whole levels again, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, because I've been critical of games like Dark Souls in the past, where it's just a brick wall you got to bang your head against until the wall gives instead of you. I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
if there's a challenge in front of me, I need for it to be surmountable for me to even bother with it.
Right.
Fury provides that because it is difficult. It is, and it ramps up in difficulty. It is a challenge. It's a genuine challenge, but there's only like 8 bosses. It's a challenge I can see the end of from the start.
Yeah, yeah.
So like that's a worthwhile experience for me. That's a worthwhile game. So I like Fury. I've played it before. I've never finished it, but still, I can see the ending from the beginning. I know how far I have to go. It's just a matter of getting there.
Right.
And so I like games like that. So I'm looking forward to playing that one when the time comes.
Nice.
Yeah, as far as interesting games that I got today or recently even, those are probably like the most interesting ones. I got one called War Tile, which looks fun. I got 2 different games titled Vampire, but it's spelled differently. One is Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song, not Swan Song. Swan Song. And the other one is Vampire, but spelled with a Y and no E.
Mm.
So Vampire.
I think I've heard of that.
I've played that one before. It's good. It's a vampire RPG.
Okay.
Where you are, well, it's okay. It's a RPG gets overused. It has RPG elements. You're playing as a doctor in, I think, Victorian era England. There's a plague going. There's some kind of plague going on. But you're playing as a doctor who has been vampirized.
Okay.
And your first victim is your sister. So, like, the entire game, like, his main character conflict internally is the guilt of having killed his sister to feed himself.
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing is, he didn't even realize who it was because the game starts and all you can see is a heartbeat. Because you're in like a dead body pile, because back then they would just pile bodies into pits and burn them.
Right.
Because so many people were dying from the plague. So you're in a dead body pile and all you can see is just the outline of a person with a heartbeat. So you go for her and the vampire stuff takes over. And once your hunger starts to go away because you've fed on her, that's when his eyes focus and he can see that it's his sister.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting way to start a game.
Yeah, yeah.
And it really sells the it really sells that gothic horror angle of, you know, as I've said before, my favorite thing about gothic horror is the fact that thematically it is the horror of like the anguish that comes with being the monster. That's what it's about.
Yeah, yeah.
So it because the best gothic horror is told from the monster's perspective rather than the perspective of their victims.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like starting the game off like that not only as a solid tone setter, but it really communicates well that, like, from a horror perspective, they know what they're doing by making the main character a vampire.
Yeah.
Because in most video games, like, the bad guys are the vampires, right? And you're a vampire slayer. And it's not really horror oriented, it's Castlevania.
Right, right.
Even though the best Castlevania games still pull off horror, but that's a different video essay. But yeah, Vampire with a Y is a really solid piece of gothic horror, as well as a solid power fantasy as a vampire. You know what I mean? Like, because you start off pretty decently weak. Like the game is difficult at the beginning. Even human enemies are a threat because you're a new vampire. And generally, people know how to kill vampires.
Yeah, yeah.
Their weaknesses are extremely well documented. So, but as you go through the game, a lot of the challenge comes from what you're willing to do ethically as a doctor and as a person to gain power. Because as a vampire, you got to do some pretty reprehensible stuff to become strong.
Yeah, yeah.
And with most of your food source being sick, you as a doctor need to make them well before they'll even properly nourish you when you feed on them.
Yeah.
So it's such an interesting system, and talking about it now makes me want to download it and start playing again. But but yeah, that's another one I'm really looking forward to playing. But yeah, so this was just a moment of Teo talking about video games he got that he's excited for / video games he's played that he really recommends.
Nice.
I played recently, last one. This is my last one, and then we can close out. I played a game called Stray Gods, a musical RPG.
Okay.
Which sounds like such a weird premise. And again, it's not really an RPG. It plays like a Telltale game.
Okay.
But there are musical sequences. And one of the main mechanics of the game is that while the song is playing, you get to pick the tone. So, like, you decide whether or not the song playing is your character asking for help and trying to, get someone on their side, or if the song is them being independent and being like, no, I don't need anyone. I can do this myself. Like, you decide the tone of the musical, basically, with the decisions you make during musical sequences. And it's really interesting. It's communicated through like static illustrations of 2D characters in mostly 3D spaces. So there's not a lot of character movement. It was, I believe, independently developed. It doesn't seem like a big studio would have developed this one. But it's got like the whole Critical Role crew in it.
Okay.
Like Laura Bailey does the voice of the main character, Grace. Ashley Johnson, I believe, was the voice of a character called Calliope. The game's called Stray Gods because it's about Greek mythology. And Calliope is one of the muses. And then like Carrie Payton is in there as the voice of Pan. For anyone unfamiliar with Carrie Payton, he was the voice of Cyborg in Teen Titans.
Oh, okay. He's also Ezekiel in Walking Dead.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm pretty sure.
He's also the voice of Aqualad in Young Justice.
Yeah, that's him.
Wow.
And he's also going to be Black Panther in the new game.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I never got to Ezekiel in the Walking Dead show.
Yeah, that's like season 6, something like that.
Yeah, I think they were still in that Victoria place or whatever that was called when my family gave up. Alexandria, whatever it was called, the town.
Oh, yeah.
The town of regular people who couldn't handle the real world is kind of the divided.
I can't even remember where that was.
Yeah. Troy Baker is in it as the voice of Apollo. And it's so funny to me too, because like there's this scene. So 4 gods are introduced in pretty quick succession. Athena, who's voiced by Felicia Day, Apollo, Persephone, and Aphrodite. They're like all introduced in the same scene. And like a musical sequence starts up where Athena, Persephone, and Aphrodite all start singing. It's like, okay. And like throughout the whole musical sequence that plays out in that moment, all I notice is that Apollo isn't singing. And me, being the Greek mythology nerd that I am, I'm like, why is the god of music not singing in this scene? And then he speaks up and just talks normally. And you realize, like, oh, he's not singing because he doesn't agree with the decisions that the other gods are coming to. He's the voice of dissent. So instead of singing, he speaks.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Okay, that's fun. That's a fun moment. And literally the second he opens his mouth, I'm like, oh, that's Troy Baker. Like, I instantly recognize.
Yeah.
Troy Baker's everywhere. He's impossible not to recognize vocally. Yeah. But yeah, so that was interesting and fun. I haven't gotten very far in it. But yeah, it's a murder mystery too, like the story.
Okay.
I don't think it's a spoiler to say this. Calliope gets stabbed by someone. And then her god essence transfers into Grace, the main character of the game. So yeah, interesting premise. Looking forward to playing through the rest of it.
Nice.
But yeah, I got too many games in my library, dude.
Yeah, I'm currently out of games, but it's more busyness. It's one of those things where when I have the time, I actually will go back and at the very least just replay the Gears of War games because those bring me such great joy.
Yeah.
Or
Hop on
I've
the
had
coal train.
exactly. Whoa, whoa. Yeah,
Whoa, whoa.
that was great.
Yeah, I still haven't even finished Sam and Max Save the World. I started that like a year ago. It's an adventure game. It's a Telltale adventure game. This shouldn't take me a year.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and then I have the people that made The Quarry. They also made Until Dawn, like that company. They a few years ago started releasing like shorter games, and they're also cheaper. They wind up being like 5 to 6 hour playthrough sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they're good.
They're releasing like as an anthology series, right?
Yeah, I think it's called like the Dark Pictures Anthology or something. I've played Until Dawn. I've played The Quarry. Those are different, but same. It's basically bigger versions of the Dark Pictures Anthology. Yeah. And I also played something, I forgot exactly what it's called. It has Ashley Tisdale in it. She's like one of the main characters.
Oh, dang.
That one was like, I really like that one. Like that one dealt with like it's like 2003 or something. They're in Afghanistan, I want to say, and
okay.
Dude, well, it's military soldiers, and essentially they're in Afghanistan on some sort of mission.
I like that you specified they're military soldiers.
Yeah.
Sorry. I guess there are other kinds of soldiers, but they're not legal in most countries.
That's true. Yeah. They're United States military, and there's some mission they're doing, and they wind up like kind of falling into this pit that's like deep underground, and
the entire game the player is prompted to yell, "Help! We found a pit! We're deep underground!"
But there's like weird, ancient, insidious, hidden stuff underground and stuff, and I won't go into it too much, but it's a lot of fun. It's a good spooky game.
I assume there's weird, ancient, insidious, hidden stuff underground in the real world.
Yeah.
That's why you shouldn't go down there.
Exactly. But yeah, I had played that one like a year ago, and like around the time I got that one, I also got another one, which is like, I don't know how I feel about this slightly being like based on true stuff. You're trapped in the mansion or the manor of serial killer H.H. Holmes.
Okay.
And you're trying to escape.
I think there was an episode of Supernatural about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this game, I haven't played it yet. I do want to play it eventually. It's been a year since I got it. It's just sitting there. Yeah. But yeah, it's the way it's been described by some people. It sounds like a little bit like Saw, but H.H. Holmes.
Yeah.
I don't even think
H.H. Holmes is the original Jigsaw.
Yeah. I was going to say it is one of those things where I don't think it's going to be like as crazy as Saw traps and stuff get, but you're trying to escape this guy's house, much like in a Saw movie, like you're trying to escape all these torture things you get put through.
Yeah.
But eventually I'll play it. But yeah, I just haven't had time. I really do want to play that one, and I do want to go back to playing some Gears of War. I want to go back to playing Gears of War Tactics, or Gears Tactics as it's called. I know a lot of people don't like that game. It's a fun XCOM type game. It's XCOM, but Gears of War. Yeah. It's fun. But yeah.
See, for me, the thing is, I have a ton of short games. I just need to finish more of my shorter games so that I can get back into the longer ones.
Yeah, that's
like
true.
I have the Phoenix Wright trilogy downloaded on my Xbox, and I haven't touched it. Not downloaded. It's in my library. I don't have it downloaded right now, actually. But still, I have the Phoenix Wright trilogy to play if I want to, right? I have Ace Attorney right in front of me, and I haven't touched it because I have too much other stuff that I want to play in front of it.
Yeah. Eventually, I'll get to it. I think it'll be a little while because on priority stuff, for me, when I get the free time, I want to watch a movie. That's like usually number one, relax, time killer sort of thing for me is watching a movie. TV show can sometimes run under that. I personally like watching movies and TV shows. And then like reading comics when I can get the chance.
Yeah, for me, it all really depends on like what mental state I'm in and like how engaged do I want to be with what I'm doing. If I'm like, if I'm ready for maximum engagement, I'll play a video game because that's about as active as you can be with your digital entertainment as possible. When it's minimum engagement, I'm like, I'll just turn on a YouTube video while I work on something else.
Oh yeah. Oh, of all of it, YouTube's the thing I do the most in terms of like amount of time that I put into like this leisure time killer thing. YouTube is definitely the number one.
Yeah, and I usually put YouTube on when I think I'm going to get something else done, when I think I'm going to be productive, and then sometimes I just end up sitting and watching the YouTube video. Because I'm so unmotivated, and I feel this. I don't like this. I don't like being stuck in this loop of thinking that I'm going to get things done and then not having any motivation to do anything.
True. Yeah, it's one of those things where like it whenever I actually get into doing the thing, it goes pretty well. It's just getting me to get into doing it.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
It's that little push. Once I'm in it, I'm good. Like whether it's writing, whether it's doing chores I need to do, whatever it may be. Like once I'm in it, I'm good. Like I can spend hours doing whatever it is. It's just getting me in to doing that thing.
Yeah, I keep like starting something and thinking like, I'm not feeling it right now. I'll get to it later. And then I stop and I never get to it again.
Yeah.
And I'll do the same thing the next day. And then the same thing happens. Sucks. Everything sucks. I hate everything.
Yeah. But hopefully we'll be able to motivate ourselves to do something this coming week, whatever it may be, whatever productive thing it is.
Yeah. And hopefully you listeners can motivate yourselves to do things too.
Yes. We believe in you.
Yes. We believe in you.
It can be anything.
Literally.
If you're going to do something awful, hey.
We believe in you.
I believe in you. Do I think it's right that you're doing it? No. By no means do I think it's right. I believe you can do it, though.
I fully believe you're capable of it.
I believe you're capable of doing that.
Again, not endorsing it.
I'm not endorsing it.
But we believe in you.
Yes.
We do believe you can do it.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not by no means am I endorsing you to like try to kill me. Yeah, I'm not endorsing you to try to kill me. By no means. Like, do not. Please don't. I believe you can do it, though.
Yes, I fully believe that you can do it.
Okay.
What do I endorse you breaking into my home and stealing my possessions? No. Do I think you can do it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I keep my door locked.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's the thing. I believe anyone can do almost anything, which is why I take all these precautions.
Exactly.
So yeah. Good luck on whatever you're about to do, listener. No, actually, no.
No,
if it's good, yes. If you're doing something good luck. Yeah. If you're doing something bad luck.
Yeah,
bad luck on you.
You know, if you're doing something bad, don't do it. I believe you can, but I don't think you should.
Exactly. That's a good way to end it. All right. I've been Brandon.
And I've been Teo.
Have a good day. Toodaloo.
Bye bye. Get out of here. Beat it.